Hello friends, today we are going to start our new unit, that is Biogenesis and Biosynthesis of natural products, and this is somewhat related to biological concepts. Very interesting topic. Let's start. So in this chapter we are going to study about first biogenesis and biosynthesis and then in detail about natural products. So let's start. First, what is meant by biosynthesis or biogenesis? So in case of biogenesis, the generation of life from non-living material is called biogenesis. Means there is a new life will be generated from other than non-living materials by using other non-living materials. It's called as in biogenesis, and according to it, means it's occurred through stepwise chemical and molecular evolutions over millions of years. Means for the synthesis or for biogenesis, there is so many steps or chemical steps or molecular evolutions are there in case of biogenesis. And what is in case of biosynthesis? It's a synthesis process. Okay, the production of complex molecules within living organism or cells. So totally it's called as in biosynthesis. Means there is a synthesis of certain compounds, complex molecules in any cell. So we are saying it is a biosynthesis. So the production of complex molecules within living organism or a cell is called as a biosynthesis. So biosynthesis is a multi-step enzyme catalyzed process where substrates are converted into more complex products in living organism. Means in case of biosynthesis, these processes are multi-step. Not only one step, there are so many steps. From one compound there will be another compound you will get, from that another compound you will get a second, another third compound. So there are multi-step processes, and in this process there are so many enzymes also take part. So this enzyme will catalyze these processes as per our normal reaction as we use in our experiments. Some catalysts are there. As per that only, in case of biosynthesis, our living body also using some catalyst, that is enzyme. So this enzyme catalyzed this all multi-step synthesis processes, and because of these enzymes, these substrates will be converted into final products or complexes. So enzyme catalyzed processes where substrates are converted into more complex products in living organism. Then in biosynthesis, simple compounds are modified, converted into another compounds, or joined together to form a macromolecules. Means firstly we have a simple compounds, and this simple compounds after modification, these compounds will be converted into another compounds or joined together. Firstly they have a simple parts, and after joining them, after modifying them, we will get a macromolecules, means somewhat bigger molecules, bigger complexes. So these macromolecules will be, for example, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acid, like that. So we have firstly some simple complex compounds, and after modifying that compound by using enzymatic catalyzed reactions or multi-step reactions that we have already discussed, right? So after this reactions, we will get a macromolecules, means somewhat larger compounds, and that complexes will be carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acid that we use in our normal life in our body. These processes often consist of metabolic pathways. What is meant by metabolic pathway? So let's see metabolism. So metabolism is a set of life-sustaining chemical reaction in organism. For the sustaining of life, for normal life sustaining, there's so many reaction there are taking place in our system, body system. So metabolism is a set of life-sustaining chemical reaction in normal organisms. The three main purpose of metabolism are, means every living body there are metabolism taking place, and the three main purposes for the metabolism in body will be the conversion of food to energy to run cellular processes. Means in daily life every living organism require food. So food is energy source for that body. So the conversion, in case of metabolism, the main process is the conversion of that food to energy to run the cellular processes. As our body is run by different various cellular processes, so for the conversion of that food to energy to run these cellular processes, the process that is metabolism is important. Another, the conversion of food or fuel, for we take a food or we can say as a fuel to building blocks for protein, lipids, nucleic acids, and some carbohydrates that are macromolecules. We have already seen this. So for the building of this macromolecules, there is a process that is metabolism required. Okay, for the conversion of this food or fuel to this macromolecules, the process is metabolism that we require. Then the elimination of metabolic waste. Whatever we are doing in this metabolism system or metabolic reactions, after metabolic process there is some metabolic waste, and the elimination of that metabolic waste is also important. So these three processes of metabolism includes. Then these enzyme catalyzed reactions means metabolism, as they are enzyme catalyzed reaction, allows organism to grow and reproduce, maintain their structures and respond to their environments. As you can see, in case of this metabolism, what we are producing: proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and carbohydrates. Means likewise this. So you can see protein also give you particular energy. Then lipids give shape to the system or that cell. Then nucleic acid also important, carbohydrates also important. So these all enzymatic reactions, enzyme catalyzed reactions allow organisms to grow, right, and reproduce, then maintain their structures and respond their environments. Okay, so this is the importance of metabolism. Then metabolic reactions may be categorized as catabolic and anabolic process. I mean, each metabolic process, in a metabolic process you can divide, there is one catabolism and anabolism. So what is meant by catabolism? The breaking down of compound. Firstly, we have to break down whatever food we are eating, we have to break down in a simple parts, and after breaking of that we have to convert that simpler parts to the complex material. Okay, so first is a catabolism. So catabolism is breaking down of that food or compound. For example, the breaking down of glucose. As we, if we are taking a food that it is a source for a glucose, then the catabolism process or catabolic process will break down of that glucose to the pyruvate by cellular respiration. So this process, that is breakdown of this glucose molecule and conversion of this glucose to pyruvate, is called as a catabolism. So firstly there is a catabolism process, catabolic process, and second is a anabolism. Now we have a pyruvate in our body, we intake a glucose as a food, then body catabolism takes place of that glucose. This glucose is converted to pyruvate now as a by cellular respiration. Now we have for our normal routine, we require proteins, carbohydrate, lipids, and nucleic acid. So the conversion of that digested or that converted first catabolic product, we have to convert to this carbohydrates or proteins or lipids. So this second, that is building up of this synthesized compounds. Now we have a pyruvate, and from that pyruvate we have to convert to amino acid, or from that pyruvate we have to convert it into another product, another complex material, complex compound. So this process is called as an anabolism. So building of or synthesis of compounds such as proteins, carbohydrate, lipids, and nucleic acid from that already catabolized normal complex compounds is called as anabolism. Okay, so first there is a breakdown of that compound, it's called as catabolism, and by the simple compounds we have to produce or we have to build up complex compound, is called as an anabolism. Okay, so finally catabolism releases energy and anabolism consumes energy. Then the first point, it is primary metabolites and secondary metabolites. In total case of metabolism, firstly we take a food, it contains anabolism and catabolism. So catabolism means whatever food we eat, we have to break down first that in a simple molecules, means conversion of that food. Suppose we have taken any food as a glucose molecule, we have to convert it into pyruvate. So body will first break down that food, means glucose, into pyruvate, and finally the second is anabolism, means pyruvate will changes or convert it to amino acids or lipids. Okay, so this is the anabolism process. So firstly, the two parts or 2 points in metabolism, that is in case of metabolites, primary metabolite and secondary metabolite. So primary metabolites will be, a primary metabolite is a kind of metabolite that is directly involved in normal growth, development, and reproduction. So important point is that in case of primary and secondary metabolite, primary metabolites directly take part in body normal reactions or normal growth. Okay, so primary metabolite is a kind of metabolite that is directly involved in normal growth, development, and reproduction. then it is usually perform a physiological function in the organism, that is an intrinsic function. So a primary metabolite is typically present in many organisms or cell, as these are important. Means as we are saying it is a primary metabolites, they are important in every step of reaction or synthesis of life. So primary metabolite is typically present in many organisms or cells. Then it is also referred to as a central metabolite, which has an even more restricted meaning, means present in an autonomously growing cells or organisms. Means I can say, as these primary metabolites are important for the normal growth, they are essential for the normal growth, as we require proteins in early life, carbohydrates for our energy. So they are essential and they are directly affects the growth, development and reproduction of the life or organism. So they are important, and they are depends upon each cell, each organism. There is somewhat different conditions will be there, so present in any autonomously growing cell or organism. Okay. Then some common example of primary metabolites includes lactic acids and certain amino acids. So here's the main point. Note that primary metabolites do not show any pharmacological actions or effects. Only primary metabolites affects there is a growth, development and reproduction, like important aspects about body or life of organism. In case of secondary metabolites, they do the external parts or other related parts, like production of antibiotics and likewise. So in case of primary metabolites, they only gives you production of that kind of complex materials, or that will give you growth, development and reproduction type of systems. Okay. So they will not show you any pharmacological actions or any protection likewise. So in case of secondary metabolites, you can see a secondary metabolite is not directly involved in those processes, but usually has a important ecological functions, that is a relational functions. Means in case of primary metabolites, they are directly involved in your system. In case of secondary metabolites, they are not directly involved in growth and reproduction all. So they are the external affairs. So secondary metabolite is typically present in a taxonomically restricted set of organisms or cell, means in case of plants, fungi, bacteria, etc. Some common example of secondary metabolites includes agot, alkaloids, antibiotics, naphthalines, nucleosides. You can see these alkaloids, antibiotics are just used as a rest. Um, as you can say, for the predators, they can restrict these things, or you can see here is a growth factor. Then terpenoids, alkaloids are also just for restricting some predators and all. So got alkaloids, antibodies, naphthalines, nucleosides, then phenanzines, quinolines, terpenoids, peptides, and growth factors. These are some example of secondary metabolites. So more correctly, we will see this. In case of primary metabolites are the compounds that are directly involved in the metabolic pathways of an organism, necessary for the growth, development, and reproduction. Then these metabolites are associated with the physiological process occurring in the organism. Next one is primary metabolites are produced in the organism during the growth phase as a result of growth mechanism. Means when there is a growth of person or growth of organism taking place, these metabolites are produced during that phase. Okay. Then means for the growth of that living thing, the metabolite secretion or metabolite formation is important. The growth phase associated with the production of primary metabolite is termed as tropophase. For the production of primary metabolite, the phase is called as a tropophase, and for the production of means at which phase the secondary metabolite produces is called as an idiophase. So we will say it afterward. The growth phase associated with the production of primary metabolite is termed as an tropophase. It is an important point for the MCQ type of question. You can note this point. So next one is the production of primary metabolite is initiated when the nutrients necessary for the body are available in the medium. Okay, as primary metabolite directly interferes. So these are found in most cell throughout the body and are also termed central metabolites. As these are important, you can say, or they are also termed as in central metabolites. Again, primary metabolites are crucial for various metabolic activities, as some act as in substrate for these processes while other act as in catalyst. As from these primary metabolites, we can form another complex compounds. So these are also act as a substrate. Means by using this primary metabolites, we can also create, means body can also create another complex compounds. So they can act as a substrate for another compound and also can act as a catalyst. Okay, means the catalyst is a compound which can catalyzes another reactions, which can increase the rate of another reactions. Okay, one more point, means some points are there. Some primary metabolites like amino acids are common throughout the organism. Means you can see we have 20 amino acids, and these are commonly, most of these are commonly obtained in all living organisms. So whereas some are restricted to some cells or some organisms. So out of that, some are restricted for other organisms or some cells, some organisms like are, and mostly they are throughoutly will obtain in all organisms. Then even though primary metabolites play an essential role in growth and development of an individual, these do not have pharmacological actions or effect against other factors. So, firstly, these primary metabolites play an essential role in growth and development. This is the important point. Okay, but they don't have any pharmacological actions. Okay, then the production of primary metabolite usually occurs at the high rate, as these are constantly required for the body. You can see we use proteins, carbohydrates, we need it constantly. Body need it constantly for the growth. So these are constantly required for the body. So these can also be extracted easily, as they are produced again and again in the body. They can be easily extracted through the body by simple extraction procedures. Then primary metabolites are divided into two groups. First is a primary essential metabolites and primary metabolic end products. Means firstly there is a primary essential metabolites that produce in the primary metabolites, and the second part in the primary metabolite is primary metabolic end product. Okay, so primary essential metabolites include compounds like protein and carbohydrates that make up the structural and physiological organization of the organism. Like protein and carbohydrates are used for the formation of structural and physical organization of the organism. Then you can see in case of persons who go for gym and all, they eat protein compounds or that is mass gainer compounds, which also contain high percentage of protein. So they are important for the normal growth and body or body structure. So it is a that is proteins and carbohydrate that makes up the structural and physiological organization in the organism. In contrast, this primary metabolic end products include products like lactic acid, ethanol, that are the end products of various metabolic pathways. So, in case of this primary metabolites, two parts are, or two groups are. First is a primary essential metabolite, which is required for the cell, only for that cell, and in the second part is primary metabolic end product. So, which end products are that? Lactic acid and ethanol, that type of end products, and these end products are used for the various metabolic pathway for the further reaction, for further synthesis. These end products are used. Okay, so example of primary metabolites includes proteins, enzymes, carbohydrate, lipids, vitamins, ethanol, lactic acid, butanol, etc. So in case of primary metabolites, they are the important compounds which use in the normal growth, reproduction and structure of the body. They are essential ones, and they do not give any contribution in the pharmacological actions against other factors. So these are important for the primary use only. And in case of primary metabolites, they are divided into two groups, that is primary essential metabolites, which use for the structure and physiological organization of the organism, and the second one is primary metabolic end product, which is used for the another for the various metabolic pathways. Okay, so second one is secondary metabolite. See, secondary metabolites are the organic compounds that are produced by various organisms that are not directly involved in the growth, development, or reproduction. Firstly, in case of primary metabolites, we seen that they are directly involved in the growth, development, and reproduction of organism. But in case of secondary metabolite, they are not directly involved. but they are essential in the ecological and other activities. Just for the growth of organism, primary metabolite is important. For the survival of organism, primary metabolites are important. But in case of secondary metabolite, they are just essential in the ecological and other activities. Okay. So secondary metabolites are also termed as specialized metabolites or natural products. Because secondary metabolites are not involved in the growth and development of organism, the absence of these compounds causes little or no effect on the survivability of the organism. Okay, so they will not cause highly effect on your body, or you can't say that if there is a lack of secondary metabolite production in your body, then that man can, or that animal or organism can't be survived. So they are just used for the another factors. So you can see absence of these compounds will not cause any problem in survivability of that organism. Okay. However, in the long run, some mild effects might be obtained or might be observed. Means for the long period of time, if your body is not able to produce that secondary metabolites, then you can observe that side effects of or mild effect you can observe from that. So some secondary metabolites are specific to a species and are only found in them, but the horizontal transfer of these metabolites across species has seen to play an important role in evolution of some organisms. Although they are not important for survival, as they are not important for survival, but secondary metabolites might be important for other activities like protection, competition, and species interaction. So, in case of species interaction, you can see second last point. Some secondary metabolites are specific to a species. So, the secondary metabolites will give you some external effects like antimicrobial activity, or they can also provide you defense mechanism and all. So you can use that secondary metabolite as an not essential, but they are need for the long term. Okay. Then secondary metabolites are classified into groups based on their biosynthetic origin. Some of the secondary metabolites are derived from the primary metabolites. As we already discussed this, some primary metabolites are required for the synthesis of further reactions or further synthesis as in substrate. They are used as in substrate. So secondary metabolites are classified into groups based on their biosynthetic origin, and some of the secondary metabolites are derived from the primary metabolites. Okay. Then these are also formed during the second stationary phase of growth in most organism, and this phase of growth is termed as EDO phase. Okay. Then most secondary metabolites tends to act as a defense mechanism against various foreign invaders. And in case of primary metabolites, we discussed that this metabolism, the primary metabolism taking place in growth or organism. So that phase is called as an trophophase. Okay. And in case of secondary metabolite, this phase is called as an IDO phase. Then most secondary metabolites tends to act as a defense mechanism against various foreign invaders. Okay. Then these are produced in rather smaller quantities and difficult to extract. These secondary metabolites, as they are produced in body in a smaller quantities, so they are also difficult to extract as primary metabolites were producing in larger amount, so they are easy to extract also. Then secondary metabolites are also not a part of molecular organization of the system or organization of the organism. Then some categories of secondary metabolites have been used in various biotechnological procedures for the formation of drugs and other compounds, as they are used in the body as an anti-inflammatory or antibiotics. So they can be used in the biotechnological procedures for the formation of drugs and compounds also. Since secondary metabolites are specific to species, different secondary metabolites are involved in the various procedures. Then some example of secondary metabolites include steroids, essential oils, phenolics, alkaloids, pigments, and antibiotics, etc. So this is enough for this lecture. I hope you understand these points. Thank you.